How big can I get my heart to be?
Thought Media Network proudly presents
How much love can I get flowing out of me?
The Real Talk Sisters. Deep, unfiltered, soulful conversations with Reverend Dr. Pjae Stanley, Reverend Kim Andrews, and Reverend Melinda Wood Allen.
How big can I get my heart to be?
Join us for Real Talk on Real Issues, Tuesdays, 2 p.m. Central, 1 o'clock Mountain. And now, let's join the Real Talk Sisters.
How big can I get my heart to be?
Hello. How's everybody?
Hey,
How you doing? How you doing, Miss Melinda?
I'm good. It's a Tuesday that feels like a Monday.
It does, doesn't it? It does. Yeah, I feel like I haven't, and I've just been doing nothing but relaxing. I didn't make any plans. I didn't go anywhere. I loved it since Thursday. Loved it.
Good for you. Good for you.
Oh man.
We were supposed to go to a Ranger game yesterday, and I had forgotten about it. And about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Bob goes, "So what time do you want to leave for the game?" And I started crying. I was like,
"Oh no,
I'm gonna go anywhere." Do we have to go? Can we stay home? And we stayed.
It's so rare. Exactly. It's so rare that we get to be home, really.
Yeah.
You know, just attending to people and things, and just to be in. My neighbors were saying, they sent me a little text, and he's like, "Are you all right? Because it's awfully quiet over there." Yeah. I'm in my room. I'm in my bed. I'm reading, catching up on books. Yeah. It's all good.
Way all right. I'm all righter than I've been. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was nice to just have a day to not
It
have
is.
anything scheduled. No.
I concur. I completely concur. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm
So
Reverend Melinda Wood Allen, and this is Real Talk Sisters, where I'm from the Church of One Love in Dallas. And for those of you who haven't been with us before, we are sisters in spirit who met each other 6 years ago, but had instantly like we'd known each other for life, and have been having deep, soulful, spiritual, and irreverent conversations about everything and anything in life since then. And our beloved sister Kim is having a wonderful retreat at Big Sky in Montana. So she's not with us this week, but our energy is certainly with her as she has a marvelous time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm Reverend Dr. Pjae Stanley, and I am the spiritual leader for Harmony Spiritual Center in Fort Worth. And so, we're just welcome. Thank you all so much for being here. Good to see you, Mel. You look great. And I'm certainly much rested. That was great.
Oh, yes, the rest was good. The rest was good. And then even this morning, because it was so dark outside, it's like, I know. And I thought it was my usual time of waking up, which is anytime between 5 or 6. And it was like 7. I was like, I slept till 7 o'clock.
Oh, no. And I was hearing all this noise. I said, what's this noise? What's this noise going on outside? I generally don't, because my house is really quiet.
Yeah,
so it was raining pretty hard for me to hear it. It was raining pretty heavy for me to hear it, because I generally go, what's that pitter patter? Fantastic. Anyway, today we're here to talk about, our topic for today is the strength to love. And this is just all, you'll see as we move forward, we'll just, whatever comes up. But the idea came up because, we're in New Thought. That's what we're about. We're about loving one another. We're about seeing the divine in one another. And the divine is nothing but love. It's unconditional love. And so, just being able to see that in everyone and be that for everyone, that takes some, to me, it takes some strength. And we'll talk about what strength that is, and all the aspects of what love looks like, as far as we can, what we can do in an hour.
Yeah. It takes strength, and it takes courage, because in order to truly love, you can't do it while standing behind a wall or wearing armor. You have to make yourself vulnerable.
Thank you.
truly love another. And that's where the strength comes in. It takes
Exactly.
tremendous
And the courage.
vulnerable.
And the courage.
Yeah.
And the courage to know that if you show up exactly as you are, and who you are, and we're all evolving all the time. So who I was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, is different now. And we're saying that however you show up and whatever you come out turn to be, if we're in a relationship, I'm going to love you. I'm going to love you, and I'm going to love myself. No matter what happens to me as I get older, and I'm no longer who I was at 20, 30. I'm not going to go on because then I'll start telling my age. But point being, point being, loving yourself, through all the changes that you're going through, and becoming more on the one hand, and I don't want to say less, but different on the other hand, and adjusting to what those differences are and what you are able to do differently. Some things greater, some things differently. So it just takes a lot of love.
In the Indian culture, in Hinduism, but more than that, in the culture of India, there is an assumption that when you're young, you're going to be selfish in a way. You're going to be really focused on your physical needs and fun and the things you want to do and your dreams and whatever. And then that the second phase of life will be your family oriented phase, where you get outside of yourself and you start including more people in your circle, but that your focus is about career and about family, about building a life for your created nuclear family. And then that the next phase of life is when you get to an age where your family is grown and you start going into a place where your focus is more inward than outward. It's more spiritual than it is out in the world. And it's a really beautiful, it being a cultural thing and just sort of expected. It would seem to me to be a beautiful way to grow up with this expectation, which is counter to what, Americans tend to do, which is that worship youth and try to stay that way forever. And whatever surgery, whatever starvation, whatever, just plain lying and posting stuff on social media, whatever, to give yourself the appearance of still being in one of those earlier phases, rather than going, hey, here's where I am right now. And it has its own rewards and its own.
It does. It absolutely does. It does. And just loving yourself wherever you are. So for me, the beginning, when you talk about the strength of love, the beginning for me starts with loving myself. I don't believe you can give what you don't have. So how do you give love to someone else when you don't have love for yourself? You don't even know what that looks like or what it means. To be forgiving of yourself, to be tolerant of yourself and all the things that you're learning as you're growing and changing, just all of those things. And so, and we have so many mixed messages, I think, in this culture. I'm going to talk about the U.S. This is where I was raised and grown up in this culture where, we're striving, trying to get more. It's all about me. I got to get more. I got to get mine, all of this kind of thing. And then when you try to love yourself, it's, well, who do you think you are? You're so selfish. You don't get to do that. You have to look out for other people. So we get all these mixed messages about, it's all about, I got to get more. I got to do things. I got to grow. I got to make money. I got to do this. And yet on the other hand, well, who do you think you are? You're selfish. You can't ask for all those things. There's just so many messages that don't align.
For me, as a child, the way I was taught this love your neighbor as yourself, that's really what the translation is, or as close to it as come. But what I was given was, you're supposed to love your neighbor more than yourself.
Correct.
You're supposed to put yourself always in the back seat, always last. And the thing is, it doesn't work. And I think it's more than a commandment. It's a prophecy. You will love your neighbor just about the way you love yourself.
That's exactly right. There's no other way.
Yourself, if you're not ever letting yourself off the hook, if you're holding yourself to an impossible standard, then you can pretty much guarantee you're doing the same thing to your neighbor.
That's exactly correct. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I completely agree with that. And so, so the work becomes, the beginning work is really the work on yourself. It's who, it's how do I find out and agree with and accept the fact that I'm okay, even as I'm learning and stumbling and not showing up as, as pretty as I'd like to be. And I don't mean pretty physically. I just mean, just pretty with the
Having it
words and
all
just,
together. Yeah.
yes, yes, yes. And even as I'm just showing up as who I am, and we've been friends for 6 years, over 6 years, and I'm a cusser. I mean, I've just been cussing my whole life. I've been around soldiers and guys, and my work life. I was a police officer, a peace officer, and working around juvenile delinquents that were male. You know, my
I
whole
have
life.
that excuse, and I'm a cusser too. Sorry.
So that whole thing of just accepting that this is who I am and not apologizing for that. And I've always just wanted, I wish I wasn't doing that. But people say things like, well, you're cursed because you don't have a good enough vocabulary, because you're not smart enough, you're not educated enough to use different words. I'm quite educated. And I love these words because nothing says it like those words. Huh?
I said, I have an awesome vocabulary, and
Okay.
it includes, I've talked to you about this before. For me, a certain amount of cursing is a spiritual practice for me, because I was brought up in this sort of rigid religiosity, which said, your certain words will send you to hell. You say that word, you're bad, you're going to hell. And I'm like,
How is this
a
possible?
word that is
A
just
word?
vanity.
Right.
And yet to actually be hateful, to be exclusive, to condemn whole groups of people, to me, that's
okay.
ugly, and that's hell.
Yeah, exactly.
Saying the word damn, no. It's just a word. It's just a word.
It's just a word.
So it's my way of saying it's just a word. I live according to my values, which is to love and respect people, not to exclude, not to just out of hand dismiss whole segments of the population or any individual as worthless or less than I am.
Correct.
That's where you'll see if you watch my language, you will see that my language reflects that. Yeah, it reflects that I don't use hateful language. I don't use hateful words. And so what do I, this other is just a way of me saying, nuh-uh, that is any power. Then have more. I'm not a better or worse person because I use this word.
Exactly. And you can't tell me that all the good works of my heart, and not good works just so I can say I'm doing good works because it's what I want to do. It's what I believe I'm here for. I honestly believe it's what we're all here for. And not all of us are able to show up for that, because there's just some people who think there's not enough in the world. And if I give, then there's less for me. For those of us who understand that the universe is abundant, there is no such thing. Spirit is source. I'm sourced through spirit. We all are sourced through spirit. But if I know that for sure, not just saying it, but actually know it for sure, there's nothing that I can't give it away. I can't give away enough where there wouldn't be more coming, because the universe is just too abundant for that. The work that I do, the giving that I do, and not just giving in terms of money, whatever, just giving of my heart, giving of myself, giving of my time, just give it. Just how can I help? That's what I want to do. That's what I believe we're here to do. And I don't think, and that's part of the love that I'm talking about, that we're talking about today, is the strength to love, is to say, this is who I am, this is what I believe, and this is how I'm going to show up.
And it takes strength, because a lot of times when we're standing up for this is who I am, we are not conforming to who I'm supposed to be.
Correct.
And it takes strength to say, no, I'm going to show up as who I am, not as who you think I should be, not as who will make you most pleased with me,
or comfortable around me.
Or
I'm not doing that either.
But who will make me be most authentically me and most pleased in my own deepest heart with who I am and how I'm showing.
And so back to loving yourself enough to say, I'm going to show up as me unapologetically. So I apologize for things because I mess up. I'm a human being. I mess up and I'm so sorry. I was getting on the freeway the other day, and I can't remember exactly what happened, but I almost came over on somebody. Who knows? You're just trying to get on or whatever. I just looked over and flashed the peace sign and the big old smile because, oops, sorry.
Oopsie. Sorry. Yeah.
My humanity, my humanness. I'm sorry, I missed that. And I don't know how they received it. Doesn't matter. It's not about how they receive it. It's just about the reason I'm giving it, and you receive it however you receive it, whatever you want. I don't have any buy-in into how you receive who I am or what I do. I don't. I'm doing what I think is right. And then if I see something that I'm doing that I think is hurtful or has hurt somebody unintentionally, I'll apologize for that. I'll change that. Oh, that's not my intention. My intention is never to be hurtful. My intention,
or that I've done it blindly in some way.
Exactly.
If I just wasn't aware, then I have something I have to change.
I do. And if they don't allow, I will apologize for that. This was ignorance on my part. It was not. It wasn't purposeful. It wasn't malignant. It wasn't any of those things. It was just ignorance on my part, not knowing something, not knowing a cultural thing that you had, or any number of things, just not knowing. I think as we are growing as a society in the world, and people are claiming who they are instead of hiding in a closet and saying, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not the other thing. Just say, no, this is who I am. This is how I'll be. And to be open to allowing people to say, this is who I am. This is how I show up. I have Rev D. She's coming to talk with us on TLT whenever I can get a hold of her, but it's supposed to be in November, about something called othering. I don't know what that is, but just using the word others, it's like, oh, those people over there. So othering people.
They're no longer us. Once we've made that, I don't have to identify with that. They're not us. They're them.
They're not us. They're other. They're over there.
And then immediately I can start treating them as less than human, as less than myself.
It's less than, correct. And so that's not, so part of, for me, and I think for you too, certainly for Kim, for us, is looking at what does love look like? Like how do you, and I'm okay with apologizing because I don't understand something. I'm good with asking, what does that mean? Share with me what this means to you. Why is this a upsetting thing that I just said or just did? Or tell me why you're showing up in this way. And when I say it in a way that looks like I'm actually curious, not condemning or whatever, just actually curious. Share with me what you want me to know. Share with me what you want me to know. That's, again, loving people. And for some, it's like, oh, you asked that question? You asked that person that? How else would I know? I can't assume. You want me to assume that? And I had one conversation back some years ago. I was at a family reunion, and it was an extended family that I hadn't been around for a while in Houston. We're sitting around the table eating, as you do at all these reunions. And this gentleman, this cousin, I'm just calling everybody a cousin because I don't, somehow we're related, so they're just cousins. And he was telling me about his daughter was like behind him or somewhere. I'd seen her walking through. She's a really tall girl. It's clear she was into basketball. And so we started talking about basketball and WNBA and whatever. And there's starting to be some chit chat about gays on the team and things like that. And he said, well, my daughter's not gay. And I said, okay, how do you know that? Because, he just said it so emphatically. And so I just said, well, how do you know that? He said, well, because she wouldn't be. Okay. Again, how do you know that? Oh, because she wouldn't do that. She wouldn't do that to me. Something like that. It was just crazy. And I was getting into conversation with him. What do you mean by that? And people just started backing away from the table. They did not want to get in that conversation. But I could not let it go because it was just too. It was. He was talking about and saying something that I knew would hurt his daughter. It's been hurting. She's not talking to you because you're saying this. I don't know if she's gay or not, but if she was, she would be telling you. And I was just trying to. And he actually, at some point, he finally got what I was saying. He just started going, "Huh, yeah, she may or may not be, but you can't assume that.
Yeah,
if she's your daughter and you love her, you can't assume that." And so it was a difference. It wasn't difficult for me because truth is truth, and I was inquisitive. Like, how did you know? But those are the kind of things I think that if you love someone, when you're confronted with that fact that, hey, I might be saying something or doing something around a loved one that is not showing love. I think he'd want to know that. And he eventually did want to know that. He did. So this is just how I approach it. I'm assuming that everybody wants to love the people that they love. And
It's
that's my
not
assumption.
always a good assumption, but it should be.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And it could have just been, he could have stormed out off, but he didn't. He didn't.
let's take a break on that and
Yeah.
talk as we come back about other strength to love, what it
Yes.
takes to be strong enough to love when conditions are not perfect, as they
Exactly.
pretty much never are.
Never are. Never are.
We'll see you back in just a minute.
Yeah.
And we're back.
We are back.
So I was starting to tell Pjae a story before we got on the air about the strength to love. When I was dating my husband 30 however many years ago that was, he at the time he'd been single for 13 years. He had had a few girlfriends in that time and told everyone in a very loud voice, people across the street who didn't care at all, "Hey, I'm never getting married again. I'm never getting married again." He told me that from the first time we started dating. I was like, who do you think
Who
you
asked you?
are? Why are you telling me this? But over time, as he just kept on being so adamant about that, and I was falling in love with him and knowing in my heart, well, yeah, I do. At some point, I do want to be married.
Right,
I had
right.
I had a young daughter. It was important to me to bring her up in a loving nuclear family sort of situation if I could. My view of the world is if I have somebody that's that I want to spend my life with, that marriage is part of that. Or it was at the time. I don't know that I'd be so, feel so strongly about it now, but that was definitely at the time was in my mind. And I really had to go, okay, so he's not getting married again. Does that mean you're going to leave him?
Right.
Because
Right.
I believed him. He said it. I believed him. It didn't occur to me that I was going to change his mind. I think
Right.
that's what had happened is he dated a bunch of people who just immediately started trying to change his mind. And it's like, it didn't even occur to me that I was going to change his mind because he seemed very sure of it. And so at some point I had to ask myself, okay, if this man is never going to marry you and you kind of know that at some point you want to be married, what do you do right now? Do you leave him? Do you say, well, if he's not going to eventually marry me, then this is worthless. Then I don't want to waste my time here.
Right.
And I came to a point where I really recognized I am in a relationship of love with a loving person who is willing to accept my love. This is not wasted time.
Exactly.
Even if he doesn't marry me, even if we have to break up, even if I have to leave, even if there's a lot of pain in all of that,
Yes.
that doesn't mean that the love that's here right now isn't important.
Exactly.
And that's how it needs to have a certain ending in order to prove that it was actually love. And
Exactly.
And when I came to that very clear realization in my head that I don't have to, he doesn't have to do a certain thing in order for me to love him.
Yes. Right.
I will have to trust myself that if and when it's time to leave, I will have the strength to do so.
Exactly.
And I was willing to just know that about myself. And it's very interesting that and I said something to him at the time to the I'm not exactly sure of the words I used, but it was something to the effect of, I know I'm going to want to get married again someday, but I'm no longer thinking about this relationship as somehow needing to prove itself by having a certain end. I'm really realizing that the time I spend with you is valuable, and that you are adding to my life, and that I love you.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing to know.
That's what I said.
Yes.
What he heard was, she didn't want to get married.
And again, you are not responsible for what he hears.
Exactly.
You said it. It was very
Not
clear.
responsible for what
You
he
hear
hears.
what you hear, buddy.
But it's hilarious to hear him tell this story. Well, all of a sudden she's telling me she doesn't want to get married. And then I don't know what happened, but suddenly I wanted to get married.
I love it. But that's back to, to the strength to love. And love, to me, I know there's all these different descriptions of what love is, but when I talk about love, it's unconditional. There's no conditions on it. Whether it's the love of my daughter, my children, my sister, you, it's unconditional. I'm not going to wait to love Melinda when Melinda gets her hair cut right or holds her lips correct. I'm not doing any of that. Or Pjae when she stops cussing, whatever, because that's not right. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. And so love is, for my definition of it, unconditional means I love you exactly the way you are. You don't need to change or add to or anything like it. And if we are in relation, you're talking about love, and then you talk about relationship, because you can love somebody and not be in relationship with them.
Absolutely.
And so, you talked about Bob, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Jason, because I was in an interracial marriage. My husband was white, and when we first started dating, I first met him. I had gone to a place specifically alone as a woman that I felt like I wasn't going to be bothered. I could just sit there, listen to the music, listen to the comedians, and not be bothered by anybody, because I just wanted some time off. It was like a Tuesday or Wednesday. I just wanted some time as an adult. And so I went, he was there. I met him. He was really wonderful, bought me drinks, all this kind of thing, and then asked if he could call. And I said, yeah, that'd be great. So I gave him my number and let it go. Didn't think about it, because I just thought, he's going to get home and think, what the hell am I doing? What's going on here with this black woman? I don't know how that's going to work, and not call, because that happens. It happens a lot. And so, but he did. He kept calling, and we kept dating. And what was on my mind was, I don't know where this is going, and I don't know how, this is really what's on my mind, and I don't know how long this is going to last. But however it is, and however it lasts, it's good.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. That's all I knew. That's all, and it lasted 37 years, and until it was no longer good, in terms of us just being, we were friends, but we just weren't. We just ended up not being having that loving relationship that I wanted, that we had at the beginning. For every reason, that dissolved, and so okay, well that's not good for me. So time to go. But it was 37 years, and it was good, and that's just it. And we still have a relationship now. Still, we care for each other. It took a minute after the divorce. I'm not saying we were immediately friends, but because that's just humanness. But the point being that love doesn't true love, real love, how does that go away? How does that dissolve? You think about your children, they can do all kinds of stuff. You're not going to stop loving them. You're going to feel sorry for them. You're going to feel bad about it. You're going to wish that they didn't have to go through that experience that they're taking themselves through, that you all are going through. I'm not going to change the fact that you love them. I'm not going to do that. So that's what it is to me. And I don't want to be involved in waste people's time and be involved in a relationship. Now I can love people, and I can love, because let me finish that sentence. I see the God in everyone. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care what position you may be in. I still see who you are. That doesn't mean I want to be in relationship with you. These are different things, and I can separate those two out and know loving you from afar is still loving you, because when I see you, I see, and that whole energy of love is transmitted from me to you. It doesn't mean I want to have you around in my house. And my brother, I couldn't, because he was a person who just could not get off of drugs. He couldn't do it.
Yeah.
He was on and off, on and off, on and off his whole life. And I just did not want to be around someone who was on drugs. When he wasn't on drugs, we were together. When he was, and it wasn't he didn't come to my house. He wanted to be. He was a street drug user. He didn't use drugs in his home. He was a street. He was to go to the streets and be there for months, years, and then come back to the house free. So these are the choices that we get to make, and it doesn't mean that you don't love somebody just because you're not in a relationship with them. That makes sense?
It takes, yes, absolutely. And it takes strength to love someone who is not caring for themselves in the way that you wish they would.
Exactly. Really wish for them. Yes.
It could be easier.
Yes.
A lot of people do just say, you know what? You're not going to worry about yourself. I'm not going to worry about you either.
No.
And really, first of all, that's not really true. If there's love
there, not at all.
And it's just cutting off your connection with it, but that doesn't mean the love, isn't there. But there's this I love you, and it hurts to watch you do what you're doing.
It does.
And I can't always be around that.
Okay. I have boundaries about that. But
I am not cutting off my love from you.
Not at all. I'm not going to do it. And you are always welcome around me, with me, and with people that I'm having a relationship with. I don't even know how to further explain that. I don't have to need any further explanation than that. But that's just what it is. And so that allows people to be who they are. And like I'm not loving you. I'm not only loving you when you are exactly this. When you get into this box that I want you to be in, then I love you. You're outside in this, I don't know, with a parallel, I don't know what these things are that you're all in. It's like this big old plasma thing. It's just that you're in. It's not a box or anything, it's a plasma. But I love you. And no matter what arm you're in, I love you. I'm sad. I wish things could be different for you, because I see that you're a beautiful person, that there could be so much more for you, but that's not what you're asking for. It's not what you want. And I have to honor that.
Well, it takes sometimes in those situations, you're dealing with someone who rejects your love.
Yeah, true.
Who doesn't want your love.
Don't want it.
I don't want you to care about me. And it takes a lot of strength to love someone without forcing yourself on them.
Exactly.
Like, you know what?
Exactly
I don't have to tell you I love you. I don't have to be in your face. You don't have to do what I want you to do. But I'm over here loving you.
Loving you.
Until the day that you turn back to me and say, I want your love, or maybe you never will.
Never will.
That's okay.
Never will.
And I've had that situation with siblings.
I know you have.
Just like, okay, well, they don't want anything from me. And so the most respectful thing you can do for someone who says, leave me alone, is to leave them alone. And it can be horribly painful. And yet to go, I love you enough to assume that you are a human who gets to make up your mind about what you want in your life.
Exactly.
And I can respect that. And I'm not going to stop loving you.
Nope.
But my love doesn't have to leak on you.
It does not. It's not necessary. It's not necessary for you to acknowledge it.
It's not necessarily for you to acknowledge it. It's not necessary for you to even know about it. But for me to know, just for me to know, you may have closed the door, but on my side, the door isn't closed. So the moment you open your door,
I'm there. You'll see me standing on the other side. Exactly.
Because you slammed it doesn't mean I'm slamming it on the other side.
That is correct.
So my door is open. At any point you're ready to open yours, look at that. We've got a clear path between us.
Look at us.
And that's what love is. And it takes
to me
to do that, because
that's what it is.
What you want to do, or I don't know about you, what I want to do is go,
but
wait, you don't understand how much I love you. And here's how, and here's why, and here's
what we can do.
You would love me back if you just understood how much I don't get to do all that. It takes a lot more strength to just go, you get to perceive me however you perceive me.
However you want.
That's wrong or not. Whether I think your memory is faulty or not. It doesn't matter. You get to feel the way you feel. And I get to stand here and hold open my door of love for you. Knowing that you may or may not ever open yours.
Ever. Exactly. Because that's what love looks like to me. And so when it comes to love, we all get to identify and say what it looks like for us.
Mhm.
This is what, for me, unconditional love is exactly that. There's no conditions on it. There's none. And there's conditions on whether we're in relationship, but
Yes.
there's no conditions on whether I love you or not. It's not. And I think that that is part of what allows me to do that is truly knowing and believing that each one of us are the divine. And I see the divine in you, and you're, and I don't know about all of these things, but some people think this is a contract that you've come here to do certain things. I don't know anything about that. That's okay. I don't need to know anything about that. What I know is that this is how you're showing up. This is who you want to be, because if you wanted to be something different, you'd be something different. This is how you're being, and you get to do that because it's free will, because God says you get to do it.
Yep.
God says you get to do it. You get to make up your own mind. And all I get to do is love you exactly the way you're showing up, whether you want me to or not. And I don't have to, and like you just said, if you don't want to know about it, I don't have to tell you about it. It's okay. It doesn't enhance my love by telling you about it.
Right.
It doesn't enhance my love by you acknowledging it. It doesn't change it in any way.
Because that's
Doesn't-
conditional. If I'm loving
Exactly
you,
correct.
I need you to love me back. Because
Acknowledge it, yes.
say, I understand that you love me because I need anything from you, then
Correct.
that's not actually unconditional love.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
Love is that, who is it? There's a Buddhist teacher who talks about the fact that love does not even have to have an object, that you can sit in a cave and love.
I
You
love
don't
that.
even have to have an object. Love is
Yeah.
about what's coming from here, not about what's being received out there.
Oh, I love that. I've not heard that, and I love it. It just speaks truth to me. It speaks true to me. So exactly. So as I was thinking about, what we want to talk about today and what the strength to love, one of the big things when we talk about loving yourself as you love others, and that's a difficult thing for a lot of people, to just love themselves, to think that they're worthy to be loved. And so, how do you love someone else fully if you don't love yourself? Because you don't even know then you don't even really know what love is. If you can't forgive yourself, if you can't actually say, you know what, I just screwed that up, but it's all right. I'll do better next time. It's all right. I'll do better next time. If there is a next time, if I have an opportunity for it next time, I'll do better. Otherwise, I'll just forgive myself and move on. If you can't do that for yourself, you can't do it for anybody else. You can't.
Yeah.
So it begins with you. It begins with knowing yourself, knowing what matters to you, claiming that, and saying that this matters to me. Love matters to me. My spirituality matters to me, and that's all wrapped up in love. It's all wrapped up in love.
In the end, that's what spirituality is. It's, to me, it's love. That's what God is. I can't put God in a box. I can't say God is this or God is that, or
I can't. I don't want to.
name. The only thing that makes absolute complete sense to me in all situations, regardless of language, is that God is love. And
Yes.
if it's not love, it's not God.
That's-
And if it is love, then it is, regardless of what it looks like, regardless of between who. My love for you is God's love for you coming through me.
Right.
I believe
That part. I do
my
too.
love for my daughter is God's love for my daughter coming through me.
Yes.
I am a conduit for that love. And
I love that.
and when I'm not loving myself, then I am a blockage. Now God's still loving, but I'm keeping that love from myself. I am withholding God's love from myself.
Exactly.
And so when I'm able to go, no. I am the receiver of love. I am the conduit of love.
Absolutely.
And it takes a certain amount of strength to come to know that, to stand up and live it, because that's not the way the world teaches you.
At all.
The world can teach you, oh, don't be such a fool. They don't love you back. Stop spending, stop using your energy loving them.
Correct.
Or
what are you getting for that love?
Or what
are you getting for that? They're not treating you right. They're not, whatever it is. And I'm not, I don't, again, as we said earlier, loving somebody unconditionally doesn't mean that I'm going to be in a relationship when I'm not being treated well. Because that's loving myself.
And be treated poorly. That's not love.
Not doing that. That's not love. That's not, so don't misunderstand that. Oh, I love him so much. Okay. All right. I was watching something on, I think one of those Reels or Instagram or whatever. And there was a gentleman, I wish I had saved it because it was so good. I could have been a movie scene, but it was just so good. And he said, he was talking to his friend who was a girl. He said, he's not calling you back because he doesn't want to call you back. He's not dating. He's not calling you for a date because he doesn't want to date you. He's not loving you because he doesn't love you. So, he's just, because we make excuses. What people make excuses. Oh, well, if they had my number, if they had,
If it wasn't
no.
for his wife, if it wasn't for his mother, if it wasn't for the way he was raised, if it wasn't for,
It wasn't for all of these other things in the way. No. He, she, they're adults. They're not loving you because they don't love you. And that's okay. That's all. It doesn't diminish who you are or the love that you're worthy of or the love that God has for you or any other love that you have and the love you have for yourself. It's not diminished. But you don't need to wait around for someone else to love you. Love yourself.
Yeah.
Love yourself. That is the best. I mean, that is the strongest, to me, the best part. You just to walk in the world knowing that you are loved by God and that you love yourself. What else do you need? What else do you need?
Let's take a break on that and we'll be back.
Okay. All right. Thank you for doing it.
We're back.
We are back talking about the strength to love.
So one of the things we had talked about at the beginning of our conversation, as Pjae and our producer Zoe were asking me about how my husband's doing and with his health and so forth, was that we're looking at a new normal. We're sort of giving up this idea of what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And living with how it is.
Yes.
And responding to that with love and with patience and with clarity and with openness. And that takes a certain amount of strength.
It does.
It takes a certain amount of strength to love, to change your actions of love as conditions change.
I love that. It's just well said.
Yeah,
that's
the
well
love
said.
Doesn't change, but how love plays out in the world may change.
Exactly. And how it shows up, how it needs to show up, it just, and this is the human side of us. We just get used to, I mean, we get used to things. You're in a relationship, you get used to, this is how, with your children, and kids are they're a great example because they need so much from you as babies and toddlers and juveniles and all that, but then they're growing up and they're becoming these young adults, and we're still the mom or the parent and talking with them as if they're this toddler, and so the love has not changed. It is enormous. The love is enormous when it comes to your children. It's enormous, but us adjusting to the changing them and honoring where they are, they no longer need all of that from you. So going from this protective person. One of the things that I would say to people, and particularly with my son, was I just felt like my job was to make sure that he stayed alive. Yeah, because he was a knucklehead. Oh my God, he would, as a toddler, just run and jump into the deep end of the pool, not a bit of knowing about swimming at all. Mm-hmm. Just that, and so just my whole job was just keeping this guy alive. Now he's a beautiful young man with a lovely wife and children, and now I get to love this grown up. He's a grown up. He's got his own family, and I don't get to see him as much as I would love. Well, how can you? He's got his own family, his own work, all kinds of things that are going on, and so the love has not changed. It has not diminished. Our relationship keeps changing and
Yes.
adjusting to the
Because
situation.
if you tried to love him today the way you loved him as a toddler,
Oh my
you
God.
would be completely disrespectful of who he is
Absolutely.
in his life. You would be
Exactly.
driving him away. You would be hurting yourself.
Exactly. And not honoring who he is.
Activity of love has to adjust.
That's exactly right. This is exactly right. And so, just the children thing. And so then, looking at it from your children, you can see that because they're toddlers and they go to grow up to be adults. But as other people that we're in a relationship with, and as they are evolving, because one of the things that we do again as human beings is like, well, you've changed. Well, I would hope so. I would hope so. I would really hope so. That I have learned that the PJ you knew 6 years ago when I first started being a minister, I've learned some things. I've learned some things about honoring you, honoring what you know, honoring the God in you, waiting for you to. So I've come up with a few phrases that I use all the time that my members shout back to me all the time is, what is mine to do? You can't answer a question that isn't being asked. So I don't give advice if you're not asking for it. If you're not asking my opinion. But before, there's always, oh yeah, oh here's how you do that, here's how you do that. That's not how people grow. That's not my role. My role isn't that. My role is to keep talking about what I think, what I believe spirit is like, and what's possible. And then when something sparks and you need some more instruction, or you want some more information or some guidance, I can answer your question.
Yeah.
Okay, answer your question.
Answer your
I
question.
get that. Answer
But
your
not
question.
ask it.
Okay, not assume you have one.
And as a parent, one of the hardest things that takes the most strength is this. Because you want to say it. You're seeing, you think it needs to be said. Somebody needs to say it.
Do they?
But is it mine to say?
Yes.
Did
Correct.
they ask? Is it my business? Am I trying to do for them what they can and should do for
Do
themselves?
for themselves.
And
Exactly.
if I am, then I am robbing them of their dignity.
Okay, and their growth, the experience of growth for growth.
That they have
Growth.
the dignity of making their own mistakes and
That's right.
experiencing their own growth as a result of that.
Exactly. I love that word. It's exactly correct. And I can remember reflecting back on my very first relationship, which was my high school sweetheart and the father of my two children. And it was not a good relationship. I mean, we were too young. And and then he just had some difficult bumps in the road that he didn't handle well. And I was thinking to myself, later on after we got separated and divorced, and I was thinking, how come my mom didn't tell me? How come she didn't tell me? How come she didn't tell me? And I thought, she couldn't tell me. I can't tell my children. She could not possibly have told me. I wouldn't have believed her. I would have been angry with her, and I would have turned all of that over to her.
Mm-hmm.
So she could have thought that, oh, all right. So that's my evolution, my growing process. From as a kid or as a young married person, thinking, how can she keep me from being in all this trouble? She could not possibly have done it. No, it wasn't her. She did exactly what she was supposed to do.
And in doing so, here's what she was saying to you. PJ, I trust you're going to figure this out.
You got to figure it out.
You've got the same access to God that I have. You have a direct line. You don't need it to go through me. I trust you.
Trust you. You know God, I know God. It's going to be all right.
Yeah.
It's going to be all right. And that is exactly what we're saying. As ministers and as spiritual leaders, the thing we're saying, and we're bringing, because we're educated, we've gone down this path of learning some things, some focused learning about spirituality and how it works. But it doesn't mean we know everything. Doesn't mean we know everything for you. But what we want to do is just share with you what we know from a broad perspective, and we're available. If you have any further questions, only if you have questions, I'm there. Otherwise, it's just a classroom. It's a classroom exercise. It's a classroom exercise until you wanted to make it something more. And I'm honoring the God in you. You know the same God that I do. You can make the same choices of learning more or doing more if and when you are ready.
Yeah.
If and when.
I'm just gonna love you while you do whatever it is you're doing.
Whatever you want to do, because it's your life. Because it's your life and your choice. And so that's another for me. So love has so many facets to it. And I don't know if at the end of our life, if you live to be 100, if you'd ever know what all the facets are. So it's amazing to me to keep looking at the facets of love and say, oh, wait a minute, because that's what's been happening for me. Like, oh, yeah, I didn't need to do all that. If I don't do anything, it's still going to work out fine.
Yeah.
It's still going to work out
And
fine.
sometimes to love, the activity of love is just showing up and doing what needs to be done.
Yes.
I remember it was a very small thing for me, but years ago when my grandmother was alive, I would just occasionally, I would be thinking of her. I'd be driving somewhere near her house and I'd go by Sonic and get a hamburger. She loved Sonic burgers. So I'd go by Sonic and pick up a hamburger and take it to her house. And if she needed it, I'd cut her toenails because she couldn't reach her toenails anymore.
Hello, can't do it. Yeah.
And to me, it was like,
yes,
it's a burger, it's some toenails. But for her, she expressed to me how loved she felt.
Isn't that amazing?
When I did that. And that was, as a young person, I was like, well, but it's not a big deal. But it's something I've also carried with me through my life, is that you don't know what's going to be a big deal.
You don't know.
So it doesn't have to be a grand gesture. Just show up and see what might need to be done and do it.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean it's all on you. It doesn't mean it's your responsibility.
It's not. It's not.
Look at it and see and just do it.
Is there something? Yeah. Is there something here for me?
As Bob and I age, with his health problems lately, loving him is more of a. Still love him with my heart in the way that I always have.
Of course you do.
There's a lot more activity involved. There's the keeping the calendar and getting to the doctor's appointments and reminding about the medication and the and the same thing I have to do with my children. The going his life, and I can remind him, and if he continues to not do what I'm reminding him of, then I have to assume that that's his choice.
Yes.
And since this is his body and his life, he gets to make his choice, and I don't get to foist my choice on him.
I think that's a song. Foist my choice.
Foist my choice. I can suggest, I can remind, and then I can shut up.
And then shut it. I've done it. I've already told him. We're done. I remember, when I was married to this, and this is so interesting to me because, we were together for 37 years, married for I think 35, and I can't. For me, the love doesn't end just because the relationship is in. The love doesn't end.
Yeah.
But I needed to have some separation after we separated. So I could, you know what I mean? I couldn't, I wasn't still his wife. So I didn't want to keep falling into the automatic things that you do and saying, yes, I can help you with this. So I needed to find myself to say, who am I now? As a single divorced woman, who am I now? What have I put on the shelf? Yes, exactly. And so now we've come to a pretty comfortable place, and it helps that he's not in this country, but we've come to a pretty comfortable place of how we get along, and really I could still feel the love for him and all the things that he did for me, that who I am because of all of his support and things like that. And so I guess I'm just saying that as it evolves, as love evolves and it changes, and even if it brings about a divorce or it brings about a separation, it doesn't mean that the love necessarily ends. It changes, it evolves. I don't know how you can love somebody, which I did, for such a long time and then just have it end.
Cut it off.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't make any sense because love is love.
Be like cutting off a leg.
It just is.
Part of who you are.
Just is. It's just who I am, and I love big and I love long. It doesn't change just because the relationship has ended. It doesn't mean the love has ended. I have to look at what are the activities with this love that we have now. What is the activities of taking care of myself, and just not and know who am I now. And so it's again back to knowing thyself. Who am I now? I'm no longer a married woman. I'm a divorced woman. And what does that mean for me? So how do I love myself through this and say, yeah, it's okay to say no to him now. It's okay. It's okay. And so, so all of that is evolving. Same with you. It's not out into a divorce or anything, but it's a different relationship where you're a caregiver. You care for people. You have always been this. And your husband is a very strong guy, and he doesn't necessarily want all of that caregiving. And so for you to honor that and to
Yeah.
be in that relationship, that's, you knowing yourself, loving your husband, loving yourself, and saying, what does it look like now? What does it look like now? And we're constantly having to do that. We can't go on autopilot and say what was working in this relationship with this guy when we were 20 is working in this relationship with this guy when we're 40. It
And
doesn't.
it's funny because you hear people talk about marriages or even friendships. Well, it's just not like it used to be. Well,
Well,
duh.
hello.
Of course,
I should say, I hope not.
I hope not. I hope not.
Yeah, because
so,
there's got to be some evolution.
As we're getting to the last just few minutes of this, something that I think has really come forth in our whole discussion here is that love, the strength to love, sometimes means the strength to do things that might not feel comfortable.
Okay.
And sometimes it means the strength to not do what your personality wants to do.
Exactly.
But that truly listening to love will tell you is not yours to do.
Exactly.
It's not yours.
Exactly.
So the strength to love means the strength to do what needs to be done and to not do what doesn't need to be done.
Exactly. Because that's love as well. I love that. That is love as well. So in doing that, Melinda, what I hear you saying and what I hear is that you're honoring who they are so that your love isn't taking over. It's, you know what I mean? It's not taking over, like, I got to love you this way. You have to accept this love. Well, no, that's not loving someone else means honoring who they are, honoring who you are, honoring what you need to do, honoring who they are, what they don't want from you, and saying, okay, all right, that's okay. All right. It doesn't change how much I love you. It doesn't change how much you love me. It changes. I love the word you used to. It changed the activities of this relationship, not the love. And so that's a different thing. So having the strength to constantly being checking in and saying, what's the evolution of this relationship? I can't, we're different now. And so the love is still there. What's the activities? How do I come in differently? And one of the things I thought I was going to go back, one of the things I'd asked Jason earlier, when we were not first, but back deep into our relationship, I would say, this is because he's very handy dandy. I mean, he just fixed things. He's very handy dandy. And I would say, can you do this for me? Can you do that? He'd say, yeah, sure can. But when he's going to get to it? And I find myself frustrated. And so finally I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. So I said, I'd like for you to fix. I said, here's what I'd like for you to do, Jay. I know that you want to do it and that you're willing to do it, but I'm needing to do it by a certain time. So I'd like to have permission from you that if it doesn't get done by X amount of time, that you're okay with me doing it. And he said, yeah, we can do that. We can do that. That was very different because before I didn't know how to do things. Yeah. But being with him, he showed me how to do stuff. So I didn't have to wait for him. And he was busy doing other things. So we had to adjust the relationship or the activities of the relationship.
Or
just talk about it. Talk about it.
And get it done by someone else. If it's not done by this time, exactly. I love you. I'm not going to nag you. I'm not going to try to force you to do something you're not ready to do.
Not going to make you feel bad.
But I'm going to make it so that I'm going to make it how I need it to be.
Correct. So I need permission from you before I even ask you for something, that this is where I'd like to go with it. How are you going to be with that? I'm great with it. Yep. I'm great with it. Okay, good. And so, this is, you just keep on looking at it. Keep on loving. Keep on growing. And that's what love looks like. The strength of love. That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. Yeah.
Lovely afternoon. Thank you, Pjae.
Yeah. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you so much.
And next week, Kim will be back, and we will be continuing on with our series about our walk with Spirit.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So can't wait
to that.
Thank you all. Have a great week.